everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single Wednesday on this channel where we just geek out about comic books. At least I hope this episode will be going up on Wednesday. You see, the last couple episodes have been a tiny bit delayed, but in all fairness, we have had a ton of stuff to cover, and that is true for this episode as well. You see, if you're new to this channel, what Marvel has done recently is they have announced every single new book that is coming out from them this fall, and that is a lot to talk about. And this is part 3 of our series looking at all those books. We're going to cover the other half of all the brand new #1 issues coming out, so let's go ahead and jump into it with the biggest book coming out, featuring the biggest character of them all, someone everyone is talking about, Mosaic.
Who?
Thank you, John Min Hansu. Yeah, this one's weird. Okay, here's the deal. Mosaic is a brand new Inhuman character who has appeared in literally only one page in one issue of the Inhumans. That's it, and they decided to give him his own book. It makes me think that the writer who came onto this book pitched the character first, and they liked it, so they decided, alright, we're going to give you this book, but we have to introduce him first. Because there have been a ton of new Inhumans who have been introduced over the past couple of years, and I actually like a lot of them, so when I heard that a brand new Inhuman was getting a book, and it was some guy who had appeared for one page, I was a little bit confused. No Flint, no Inferno, no ISO. Each of those characters are pretty darn cool. Especially ISO. If I had to pick one new Inhuman to give a book to, it would have to be ISO. She's incredibly smart, is being trained by the Beast, is the Inhuman's tech expert, and is a massive telekinetic powerhouse. But you know, we got Mosaic. Listen guys, I don't know what to say about this character because we know literally nothing about him. Here is all the information we have gotten on Mosaic so far in the one page that he has appeared in. He used to be a basketball player, then he got exposed to Terrigenesis, now he has the power to go into other people's bodies and possess them, and then for a short period of time, he gains all the knowledge that that person had. Again, that's a pretty cool power, especially for spy missions, which is what he is for the Inhumans, but yeah, I really don't know what to say about this book. I always applaud giving new characters books, but he's not a character I would have given one to right away. I would have fleshed him out a little bit more. And also, the writer who's going to be working on the book, he is pretty much new to comics. He was a screenplay writer, and this is going to be one of his first books, at least at Marvel. So I'm not saying anything about this being bad. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying this book is going to be bad. I'm saying I literally know nothing about this book. I don't know what to say about it. Next, just moving along in alphabetical order, is Nova. And the Nova book is interesting because out of all the books that were previewed, this one has been shrouded completely in mystery. We don't know who's working on the book, and we don't even know who Nova is going to be. And what I mean by that is that there have been two major Novas in the history of Marvel Comics. Richard Rider, who was one of the founding members of New Warriors, so I instantly have a fond memory of him, and the current Nova, Sam Alexander, who I have actually really been enjoying. His book has been a ton of fun, and the preview image that we got for the upcoming Nova book, it was Richard Rider's old helmet, and just said, "Coming soon." And that's all we got. So this has led many people to believe that Richard Rider is coming back from the dead, which could be cool, but here's the thing. Richard Rider died over in what is known as the Cancerverse. It was a universe where death doesn't exist. He was trapped over there with Thanos, Star-Lord, and Drax, and they discovered they can't die over there. But he sacrificed himself to create a portal that let all of them go back into our universe. And it looked like he just kind of disappeared into the Force. He just kind of faded away. But if he was in the Cancerverse, where death doesn't exist, it's totally possible that he could come back to life. However, everything in the Cancerverse kind of comes back to life as big Cthulhu monsters whenever they die. So this doesn't necessarily mean that he's coming back as a good guy. It could mean that he's coming back as a villain. Or just throwing another crazy theory out there, maybe he's not going to make it back to our universe, but his helmet's going to make it back. Sam Alexander is going to find that helmet, is going to have Richard Rider's memories in there, and those memories are going to start training Sam on how to be a better Nova. I don't know. These are just crazy speculations, but in all honesty, the best possible option here is that Richard Rider comes back from the dead, he's perfectly fine, and then he and Sam both share the new Nova book, and it's a team book with the two of them, the old Nova and the new Nova. It would be a ton of fun, and that is the book that I want to read. Although I won't lie, Cthulhu Nova does sound kind of cool as well. Next is the book that is tearing me in two more than any other book on this list. Occupy Avengers. I have some things about this book that make me super excited, and I have some things about this book that make me very hesitant. So, Occupy Avengers, we know nothing about this book other than the fact that David Walker is going to be writing it, and David Walker is the guy who has been writing Power Man and Iron Fist, which I have mentioned numerous times, is one of my favorite books that Marvel is putting out. He's also writing Nighthawk, which is also pretty darn good, and over at Dynamite, he's writing the Shaft series, which when I saw that they were making a Shaft series, I was like, whatever, I don't care about that. I read it, oh my gosh, one of the best books out there, period. Not one of the best indie books, not one of the best film adaptation books. It is a stunning series. David Walker is killing it on that book. I bring all this up because Occupy Avengers, the sense that I get from looking at that preview image is that this is going to be more about a book about regular human beings. Regular human beings helping each other with real world issues. Because we see Hawkeye up there, but then everybody else is just a normal person. So it looks like this is going to be more of Hawkeye going out there to help people on the street and other people realizing, you know what, we gotta stand up and we gotta help each other too. We gotta deal with these real world issues, because if you've been reading many Marvel books, they have been bringing up a lot of real world issues recently. So that sounds like a great book. And David Walker sounds like the perfect person to write that book. Here's the things that are making me hesitant about though. Okay, I fully believe that David Walker could write a great Hawkeye. He seems like he would be a perfect fit for that character because Hawkeye was always that guy about speaking up for the little guy. He was always that guy who was about speaking about truth to power. So if the description of this book that I just gave is what the actual description of this book is, and David Walker is writing this book, that sounds like a perfect fit for Hawkeye. However, as I have brought up several times in the last week, after Civil War II issue number 3, and what Hawkeye did in that issue, I need a little bit of space from Clint Barton. What he did in that issue makes it hard for me to look at him and go, oh, that's the Hawkeye that I love. It makes me look at him and go, you have now got a black spot on your record that is going to be there forever. And it's going to take me a while to listen to anything that your character says and look at you like the old Hawkeye again. Again, I don't want to spoil what happened in that issue. Although I did do a spoiler talk of it, so if you just want to say, hey, screw it, I don't care, and just go to it right there, then fine, whatever. But, yeah, this book would have been amazing if what happened in that issue had never happened. But it did happen. So now I don't know if I can look at this Hawkeye in this role and go, oh yeah, I totally buy it now. And the other problem I have, and it's real tiny, and I fully understand it because I know that Marvel just wants to slap the word Avengers on any book that they can because they believe that that will bring in sales. Take it from a guy who works in a comic book store, no it does not. The audience out there is smart enough to realize, oh, this isn't actually a book starring the Avengers, I'm going to put that down. That's why numerous books like Avengers AI didn't work. And the other problem with that is that actually you're turning away a lot of the audience that would enjoy some of these weirder, quirkier books like Avengers AI by just slapping the word Avengers on there because they look at it and go, oh, that's something really mainstream, I'm going to avoid that. If you were just called Avengers AI, Hank Pym, Agent of Science, and spell science out with period marks in between all, that sounds like a goofy fun book, and the people who want goofy fun books will look at it. I'm still kind of mad that Avengers AI was canceled. That book was darn good. But my point is, by just slapping Occupy Avengers on the label of this, I feel like a lot of the audience out there that would enjoy a book like this is going to look at it and go, oh, it's just some Avengers book. I don't read Avengers, so screw it. I really feel like they should have put a different title on this series. But then again, I know nothing about what this book is actually going to be. Everything I just said was crazy speculations, but let's be honest, you tune into this channel for my crazy speculations. So enjoy. So okay, based on my description of Occupy Avengers, you can probably tell that I tend to like those speak truth to power type of characters. And that brings me to this next book, Prowler. Now, this is a very odd choice. I never thought that I would see the day where Prowler got his own book, but I'm kind of glad that he is getting one because I've actually always kind of been a fan of the Prowler. You see, I'm an old school Spider-Man fan. I grew up reading that book, and I love the really obscure characters, the characters who never really popped up in the cartoons or the movies, and Prowler was one of those characters who I always found really interesting, but he never really got that spotlight that I felt that he needed. You see, Prowler was always kind of that blue-collar version of Iron Man to me. He was the everyman version of Iron Man, because he was a really smart inventor, but no one ever gave him the recognition that he deserved. So he decided, you know what, I have to work as a window washer because no one will hire me, no matter how good my inventions are. So screw it. I'm going to invent myself a super suit. I'm going to build myself a suit with all these gadgets I've created, And admittedly, he originally used that suit to commit crimes, but after fighting Spider-Man a couple of times, he went, you know what? This guy, he gets disrespected. He gets crapped on all the time, but he's still out there. He's still fighting the good fight. You know what? That inspires me. So he turned his life around and decided he was going to use this Prowler suit of his to go out there and actually be a superhero, to actually try and save the day just like Spider-Man. And again, no one ever really gave him that recognition that he deserved. But in the most recent Spider-Man comics, he has actually started working with Peter Parker at Parker Industries to be the head of his security, and he actually disguises himself as Spider-Man when Peter Parker needs someone to be Spider-Man right next to him. So he's been out there fighting crime along with Spidey. He's actually been working with S.H.I.E.L.D. He's got this great new high-tech suit. So in the past couple of years, Prowler has actually kind of stepped up his game. A lot of people are now talking about Prowler. So if there was any time you would ever give Prowler a book, this is the time. But it's going to be written by Sean Ryan, and I don't know how I feel about that, because over the past couple of years, Sean Ryan has written two things worth noting. For Marvel, he's written Nova, and for DC, he's written Suicide Squad, and on both those titles, there have been issues that I thought were kind of bad, but there have also been issues that I thought were pretty darn good. In fact, I constantly go back and forth on both those books on whether or not I think they're good or bad. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about him writing a Prowler book. I mean, as I said, I've seen him write some good stuff, and also, the guy who wrote Suicide Squad, now writing a book about a guy who used to be a convict, but then turned his whole life around, and now works on secret missions for the government. That actually does seem like kind of a good fit, so I have some hope for it. Plus, that preview image? That's actually really intriguing. Why are there two Prowlers and one of them is dead? This could actually be kind of a cool book. Next is Rocket Raccoon, and Rocket Raccoon has had several series over the past couple of years. He had the Rocket Raccoon book by Scott Young, then that book was canceled but was replaced by Groot, which was basically another Rocket Raccoon book, and most recently there has been Rocket Raccoon and Groot, and all three of those books have been kind of cartoony, kind of lighthearted, kind of crazy, wacky, zany, and this newest series is going to be written by Matthew Rosenberg, and as I mentioned on the last episode when I talked about him working on the Kingpin book, that is a guy who is known for writing some really dark, gritty stuff. So it seems like this new Rocket Raccoon book is going to go in a completely different direction, and honestly, I'm kind of okay with that because, yeah, Rocket Raccoon, it makes sense to make him a big, goofy cartoon book. However, he is also a weapons expert who goes around the galaxy just killing everything in his path. You could also turn that book into a really dark, gritty series, and if you're going to do that, I could see Matthew Rosenberg taking over that book. I could see him putting that book in that direction, but also all the Guardian series are going to be based around this new event called Grounded, where basically the Guardians are stranded on Earth. In fact, we see Rocket in this preview image locked up in a kennel with other stray animals. So yeah, it looks like he is going to be suffering here on Earth, so it does look like this new series is going to be taking his character in a much darker direction. So if you're going to do that, yeah, Matthew Rosenberg is the guy to do that. Also, as I said, it is weird to see a book that was so cartoony now going in this direction, but after having that many cartoony books in a row, it might be nice to get a little palate cleanser in there, something different, just to kind of spice it up, just to make it different, and then if it doesn't work, they go right back to the cartoony. And next, while we're on the subject of the Guardians being stuck here on Earth, Star-Lord. Star-Lord is also going to be grounded and stuck here on Earth. Okay, he was born on Earth, it could be cool to see him return to the planet Earth, but I'll be totally honest with you, the past couple of Star-Lord series, I read them and I thought they were okay, but they just never held my interest. So I'll be totally honest with you. When I saw that they were going to have a new Star-Lord book, I wasn't interested in it at all. Until I read that Chip Zdarsky is going to be writing it, now I am totally on board for this book. Knowing that Chip Zdarsky is on this book has me 100% intrigued with it. Because you see, ever since the Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out, all the Guardian characters have had a much more zany and wacky sense of humor to them, and that was one of my problems with the Star-Lord series, is that I read and it's like, I can tell that you're going for that, but I don't think you're capturing it that well. Chip Zdarsky is known for just being crazy, for being totally wacky and having a huge sense of humor to him. He's one of the creators of the Image series Sex Criminals, which is one of the weirdest comedies out there, and also he recently worked at Marvel on the Howard the Duck series, which was a surprisingly deep but still totally crazy off-the-wall comedy. I highly recommend anybody who wants a deep character study book that is also a great comedy to check out Howard the Duck. That was one of those shining gems from the past couple years at Marvel and a total surprise hit. And he is going to now be working on Star-Lord. Okay, I'm totally intrigued now. Okay, these next 3 books I'm going to all lump together because they all have one thing in common. Foolkiller, Solo, and Slapstick. Now, these are 3 insanely obscure D-list characters at Marvel. So you might be asking, how on earth did they all get books? The reason why is because recently in the Marvel Universe, Deadpool has become so famous, just like in the real world, that he has decided to start franchising out. So he formed his own new team called the Mercs for Money, and it's just made up of some of the most D-list Marvel characters you can think of, and those 3 are part of that team. And as I said, because Deadpool is such a huge, massive success at the moment, pretty much anything connected to him will make money, so Marvel has decided that they are going to test the limits of that theory and give 3 of those crazy, obscure characters from the Mercs for Money team their own book. However, there is another reason why they're giving so many characters from the Mercs for Money team their own book. And I mentioned this on the last episode, so sorry to anybody who's getting sick of me bringing it up, but it is actually relevant to this. It's because Disney has told Marvel they don't want them to use or spotlight any characters who they don't own the movie rights to. And Fox still owns the movie rights to all the mutants, and that includes Deadpool. And if you'll notice, pretty much all the X-Men teams have been completely left behind in Marvel now. They're getting almost no mention. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all canceled, it just means that Marvel is not trying to promote the X-Men anymore, and in fact if you look at their catalog, the X-Men have fewer books now than they have had in decades. It does look like Marvel is trying to push them to the side. However, Deadpool is so freaking popular that he won't stay over there to that side. He keeps pushing back. You see, the X-Men, they might still sell books, but they don't sell toys, they don't sell shirts, they don't sell posters, they don't sell all that stuff that makes the real money in the world of comics. Deadpool, on the other hand, sells tons of that stuff. So, Marvel's like, well, we can't get rid of Deadpool, he's bringing in way too much money. What if we take these supporting characters we've given him, who we do own the rights to, and try and make them popular? And for anybody who says, I don't think they're doing that, why on earth do you think Gwenpool is a thing? Marvel owns that. Why do you think Marvel's getting out there and saying, oh, this is a big thing that you all love when no one was talking about it to begin with? Yeah, same thing is happening right now. No one was talking about Slapstick, no one was talking about Foolkiller. Marvel wants you to talk about Slapstick and Foolkiller. So yeah, I can't lie, it does feel weird talking about these books because they are indeed part of Marvel's big plan to try and wipe out the X-Men. However, at the same time, that doesn't mean that these books can't be good. It doesn't mean that there can't be something in these books that are really interesting or really fun. And honestly, when I look at the creative teams behind these books, I am actually really intrigued by them. You've got Jerry Dugan working on the Solo series, and Jerry Dugan is the guy who's been writing Deadpool for the last couple of years, and I have loved his Deadpool series. So if he can bring some of that talent over to the Solo series, I'm totally behind it. And you've got Fred Van Lente, who to me is one of the most underrated writers in comics. Check out some of the stuff he has written over at Valiant, like Archer and Armstrong and Ivar Time Walker. They are amazing series. I have loved his runs on those books. He's finally returning to Marvel to write Slapstick, and that seemed like an odd fit. I'm not gonna lie, that seemed like a very odd fit. But again, he is such a talented writer. I will gladly check this book out just because he's on. Also, the whole thing with Slapstick is that he's a living cartoon character in the real world. And if you look at, this book is going to have 2 artists working on it, and when you look at the preview image, Slapstick is drawn completely different from the background. So if I had to take a guess, I would actually say they're probably going to have one artist draw everything in the world and all the characters, and another artist just draw Slapstick to make him really look like a cartoon character that stands out. That's actually a brilliant idea for that character. And the third one is the one that when I first heard about, was totally the least interested in, but when I saw who would be writing it, it instantly became the one I was most interested in. Foolkiller. Now, Foolkiller was just this crazy guy who swore that he would go around murdering anyone he thought was a fool. Yeah, that was all that there was to his character. But basically he was a guy with massive anger issues and was kind of crazy. But in the Deadpool series, part of the Mercs for Money team, he has decided he was going to get in touch with his anger issues, and he started studying psychiatry, and he became a therapist. That is why on that preview image you see him sitting there in the chair listening to someone saying on a therapist couch. However, he is still totally insane and still totally full of non-stop rage. Now, the reason why I say that the writer on that book has me the most interested in it is that it is going to be written by Max Bemis. Now, Max Bemis was, did I say Bax Memis? Max Bemis was the lead singer for the band Say Anything, which I'll admit was a band I really enjoyed when I was a kid. But he has actually written a couple of comic books. He recently wrote a comic called Worst X-Men Ever for Marvel, which was a book about an X-Men who had one mutant power, the power to blow up. And he could only use it once, because it's not like he blew up and he himself was immune to the damage. He was like, oh, you're immune, congratulations, you have something special about you. You will die if you use it. So it was kind of a really interesting character book, but the thing that has me the most excited is that before he wrote that, he wrote a book for Boom Comics called Polarity, and it was about a person with bipolar disorder, but he also had superpowers, and he had to take medication for the bipolar disorder, but one day when he went off the medication, that's when he discovered the medication was also tapping down his superpowers. So the worse his condition got, the more powerful he became. So again, a very interesting book. But the thing that has me the most excited about Max Bemis going over and working on the Foolkiller book is that in that Polarity book, the protagonist had his own therapist, and the exchanges between him and his therapist were great. They were some of the best things in that book. In fact, there's a weird twist with the therapist that goes in a totally crazy place. But reading that, you can tell that Max Bemis himself has been to therapy, and he has some very strong opinions about therapy in general. So the fact that you're going to get that guy to write the book about the crazy murdering therapist actually has me really excited. It has me look at that book that I was not interested in at all and go, oh my god, you got the perfect guy to write that book. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm actually excited for the Foolkiller book. Next we have what might be the most intriguing book on this list. Thanos is going to get his own series, and in the last episode when I talked about the upcoming Bullseye and Kingpin book, I talked about how it's really interesting whenever anybody gives a villain a series, because we're so used to seeing the villains fail that when you actually give them a book where they're going to succeed, it actually does make them seem like that much bigger of a threat, and also you flesh out their characters, and Thanos is a really interesting character who does need more fleshing out. And they're putting Jeff Lemire on the book, and this is why I said this is the most interesting book on this list. Because Jeff Lemire has been writing a lot of stuff for Marvel recently, and about half of it, stuff like Extraordinary X-Men, is kind of but the other half, books like Moon Knight, are amazing, some of the best books out there. And I think the reason for that is because Jeff Lemire is a super creative and imaginative guy. And it feels like on Moon Knight, Marvel said, hey, here's a crazy concept, do whatever you want with it, we don't care, just go nuts, have fun with it. But with Extraordinary X-Men, it feels like they came in and said, okay, listen, we're gonna need you to do this specific thing. We have a specific thing planned out, you have to do that. So that's why that one just kind of feels like, but on Moon Knight, where he's just allowed to go nuts and do whatever he wants, it feels amazing. So, here's the thing with Thanos. Thanos is going to be the big villain in the upcoming Avengers film. They've been talking about him for years now. So I could see Marvel coming in and going, okay, listen, you're going to have to do this specific thing. You're going to have to follow these plot lines. We need to set him up so that people will know who he is for the movie. So if they do that, I'm not looking forward to it that much. But on the other hand, Thanos is a super crazy character, has this big imaginative backstory. He goes out there and he fights gods in space. He is in love with the incarnation of death itself. If you let Jeff Lemire just go nuts and do whatever he wanted to with this character, it could be one of the best books out there. So as of now, we can't really tell which of those two options it's going to be. We don't know what Marvel's plans for this Thanos book are. However, in that promo image we got, you can see the Phoenix Force in the reflection in his eyes. So one thing is clear. No matter what Marvel has planned for this book, they're swinging for the fences. They have got big stuff planned for this book. So again, if you let Jeff Lemire do all this huge, big, massive stuff, and you just let him run wild, I think this could be an amazing series. Next up might be the craziest book on this list, and considering that 5 minutes ago I was talking about Slapstick, that's saying something. US Avengers. Okay, For anybody who doesn't know what this book is, this is going to take a crazy amount of backstory, so just stay with me on this one. For decades in Marvel Comics, there has been an evil organization called AIM, and AIM is full of mad scientists who are mostly just concerned with money. Some of them are part of a weird cult, but they're not important to this conversation. Most of them are just concerned with money. So, former X-Men and former Avenger Sunspot, who is a billionaire, looked at them and said, "You guys just want money? I have money. What if I just bought AIM and made you guys use your mad science skills for good?" And indeed he did. So he bought AIM, and he turned AIM's headquarters into the headquarters for his new Avengers team, which contains members like Songbird, Squirrel Girl, Power Man, White Tiger, Hawkeye, a bunch of other people. So, for the past couple of years, he has been leading his new Avengers team. However, because AIM used to be a supervillain organization, S.H.I.E.L.D. still didn't trust them, so S.H.I.E.L.D. came in and shut them down. However, Sunspot still wanted to form his own Avengers team, and if anybody is still following this conversation, thank you, because that all sounded nuts. For anybody who complains about there being too much backstory to learn for comics, I kind of understand your point on this. But this is the follow-up to that new Avengers book that was all about the AIM Avengers. And in this book, Sunspot is going to take his AIM team, the Advanced Ideas Mechanics team, and rebrand them as an all-American team. He's going to rebrand them as American Idea Mechanics to try and get S.H.I.E.L.D. off their back, and he's creating this huge star-spangled Avengers team. And I should point out at this point that the writer of this book, Al Ewing, is British. And I kind of like that a British writer is coming in here and just creating a really goofy American stereotype team. This book is full of so many goofy American characters, I almost expect to see Guile from Street Fighter in there. Okay, let's run down the cast of this book. It's going to be Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, it's going to be Thunderbolt Ross, the old Red Hulk. He's going to get his Red Hulk powers back along with his mustache. That always bugged me that when he turned into the Hulk, he lost his mustache. But he's also going to be carrying giant Cable, Rob Liefeld 90s style guns with him. You're going to have Pod, who is this space robot that is capable of just taking out pretty much anyone. She's one of the most powerful robots in the Marvel Universe. You're going to have Tony Ho, who is the daughter of the person who helped Tony Stark create his first Iron Man suit. She's the new Iron Patriot. And you've also got Danielle Cage, who is Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' daughter from the future, who is Captain America in the future. This all sounds insane. And honestly, I'm totally fine with that because it's being written by Al Ewing, and the crazier the idea that you give Al Ewing, the better he is at it. Al Ewing has a great sense of humor when it comes to big, goofy comic book ideas. This looks like a big, goofy comic book idea. This looks like something he would be perfect for. My only problem with the book is that it's called Avengers, and as I've mentioned numerous times, I'm kind of getting sick of there being like 20 different Avengers books. You know, in All New, All Different Marvel, they kind of tapped that down a little. They went down to just 3, and I was like, okay, that's manageable, we can deal with that. And now it looks like that's rising back up again. It's like, I don't need that many Avengers books because as an old school Avengers fan, it just kind of bugs me looking at so many Avengers books and just going, I don't know which of you is an actual Avengers. If Cap got on his little membership card and said Avengers Assemble, everybody needs to show up, who's coming? That's what I need to know. And yeah, it just kind of bugs me that there are that many people going around calling themselves Avengers at this point, that you just don't know who is an actual Avengers. So literally, if you just call this anything else, I would have no problems with this book. Speaking of Al Ewing writing big, crazy comic book ideas, the Ultimates are returning with a brand new series called Ultimate Squared. Now, the Ultimates was one of the most praised books out of All New, All Different Marvel. However, it might have been just a tad too crazy. Like, I'll admit, when I read the first issue, there was so much make-believe science speak in that issue. I had to reread it about 3-4 times before I could kind of understand what they were talking about. But I do really have to applaud that book because it is going for such big ideas. In the first issue, this team of the Ultimates, which their whole idea is that they're going to get together and solve the biggest problems in the Marvel Universe, the first big problem they solve is Galactus. They go in there and go, yeah, listen, you were created at the dawn of the universe, but you were created wrong, that's why you're always hungry. We're going to come in and fix that. And they changed him so that he is now no longer hungry. Instead, he's full of the energy of the universe, and he's going around to all the planets that he destroyed, and he's giving life back to them. But this is a series that it comes up with so many imaginative things. It has been a long time since I've read a comic like this. You know, in one issue, they travel to the edge of all reality, and you see the timeline of Marvel, and they actually explain to you why things from the past don't really make sense anymore. They explain to you why certain continuities get dropped. They explain why certain continuities get changed. You see the flow of all time in Marvel Universe, and that's incredible. And one of the biggest things that they did in there is that Galactus went outside of reality and looked back at, and he saw eternity, which is the big embodiment of all existence in Marvel Universe, and he was chained up. He was tied down. Someone imprisoned reality in that book. And the idea behind Ultimate Squared is that the team is finally going to go and investigate who did this to eternity, who has imprisoned all existence. If that description doesn't get you at least intrigued in Ultimates, I have no other idea of how to sell this book. This book is incredible. I highly recommend it to anyone. Next up, Unstoppable Wasp. Now, I am a huge fan of the Wasp. I have been ever since I started reading the Avengers book. She was one of my favorite members of the team. I've always wanted her to get her own book, and now they're finally creating a Wasp book, and it's going to star the new Wasp, not the old one. But in all honesty, I actually really like the new Wasp. She's popped up in a couple issues of all new, all different Avengers at this point, and she's actually been really cool in there. I've really enjoyed reading about her. She's a great character. I talked about her in the last episode, so just go back and listen to me talk about the Avengers book. I describe her in there. But I'm really glad that she is going to get her own book, mostly because it's going to be written by the same guy who writes Princeless. For anybody who doesn't know, Princeless is a book by Jeremy Whitley, and it's a book about a princess who gets locked away in a castle by her parents, and they tell her, you have to wait here for a prince to come and rescue you. And one day she's just sitting there and she goes, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? So she breaks out of the castle herself, gets her own dragon, and then goes around to rescue other princesses, and they all join a big team together. It is an awesome book for all ages, especially for young girls. Any young girl that comes into my store looking for a book, that is the #1 book that I point them towards. And now you have this new Wasp who is a young girl, and you're going to get that same guy to write her story. Awesome! Again, I am so glad that Marvel is aiming so many books at young readers and at young female readers. This looks like it's going to be another book aimed at that audience. However, before I move away from Unstoppable Wasp, the next book I'm going to talk about is Unworthy Thor, and I just gotta say something to Marvel. You need to come up with different names. Nothing wrong with the name Unworthy Thor, nothing wrong with the name Unstoppable Wasp. However, just look at this list. You've got Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Unbelievable Gwenpool, Uncanny Avengers, Uncanny Inhumans, Unstoppable Wasp, Unworthy Thor. You have too many uns. You need to get a thesaurus. But yes, we are now talking about Unworthy Thor, and I am really excited for this book because I loved how Jason Aaron wrote the old Thor. I love how Jason Aaron writes the new Thor. But I had a problem with the fact that it looked like he had a big plan for that old Thor, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared because Marvel wanted them to create this new Thor. And again, I absolutely love the new Thor. That book is fantastic. However, I did want to see what Jason Aaron had planned for that old Thor. So I'm really glad that Jason Aaron is going to get to write another Thor book starring that old Thor, and it's going to be his quest to become worthy again. I am really excited for this. And on that cover, you see another Thor hammer that again has that description on there of, if ye be worthy, ye can lift this hammer and gain the powers of Thor. And you might notice that that hammer looks different. Okay, again, time for some long, crazy backstory. During Marvel's last big event, Secret Wars, Dr. Doom took the fractured remains of many alternate realities and crammed them together to create a brand new planet that he ruled over. And he took the Thors from every single one of these other realities and made them his law enforcement team. They were the ones who went out there and enforced Doom's law. He had dozens and dozens of Thors going out there, basically being the cops of this planet. And at the end of that storyline, the Thor from the Ultimate Universe, which was the universe that Marvel created about 16 years ago to be a fresh start for all their characters, he was one of the Thors that began to realize this planet is wrong. There's something wrong with Doom. We have to fight back. And he was destroyed at the end of that book, but you saw his hammer go through reality and crash land on our planet. And the moment I saw that, I went, that's how they're going to do it. That's how they're going to get old Thor back, but allow us to still have new Thor at the same time. There's going to be 2 Mjolnir hammers on Earth, and they're going to both be able to lift one. So yeah, as I said, I fully trust Jason Aaron with this character. I read his Thor God of Thunder series, and it was stunning. One of the best Thor series I have ever read. So I fully trust him to come in here and write this character again. And again, I am really excited that Marvel figured out a way to allow us to have old Thor back, but at the same time, keep new Jane Foster Thor, because I love both those characters. And the last book we're going to talk about is Venom. and I kind of wish I wasn't going in alphabetical order because I don't really have a lot to say about this Venom book. Yeah, we're kind of ending the episode on a whimper instead of a bang, but here's the deal. For the past couple of years, Flash Thompson has been Venom, and in all honesty, I love Flash Thompson as Venom. I have really enjoyed what they have done with that character. Don't get me wrong, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Eddie Brock as Venom, but the Flash Thompson Venom has been great. If you want that darker, tortured Venom, go and read Rick Remender's Venom series. But if you want something totally different with Venom, read him in Guardians of the Galaxy, where they came in and finally found the symbiote homeworld, and they completely changed what the symbiotes were. And in all honesty, I was kind of okay with what they did with that, in which they basically said that the Venom symbiotes are basically protectors. They're supposed to be good guys. They're supposed to be healthy living organisms that bond with a partner and give them basically this big, powerful suit to wear to go out there and enforce justice. But if that suit matches up with the wrong person or gets damaged, it can kind of mess with their brains, and then it keeps deteriorating and getting more messed up, and that's basically what happened to the Venom symbiote. It got damaged and experimented on too many times, so that's why it turned into the big, angry monster that it was. But they went back to the Venom homeworld, it healed him up, and Flash Thompson then basically was one with his Venom suit. He and Venom were partners in this. It wasn't them just going in there, it's like, oh, I've got this symbiote and it's talking to me. No, instead he was there like, hey buddy, hey Venom, come on, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna be space heroes. And it was actually a lot of fun. But in the most recent couple issues of Venom Space Knight, the suit got damaged again, it did start to deteriorate again, and it turned into the big monster again. And when you look at this one panel that we got here, yeah, it's pretty clear that's what they're going back to. It's pretty clear that Marvel's like, listen, we tried something new with Venom, didn't work out. Go back to the big monster with the slobbery tongue. Don't get me wrong, I love the big monster with the slobbery tongue. Nothing wrong with that. I just kind of wish that Marvel had stuck with this new Venom a little bit longer, like just tried it again. Just like, okay, maybe it didn't quite work out now, but let's get a new writer in there, try something different with it. Nope, they completely abandoned it. They are going back to Earth. It's gonna be Venom on Earth again as the big monster. And he doesn't even look like Flash Thompson's old Venom outfit, where he was Agent Venom, which I kind of wish they would have gone back to that, but no, he looks like classic old school Venom in this. He looks like old Eddie Brock Venom. And, you know, listen, if you're a fan of that Venom, that is awesome. I just kind of wish that they had stuck with this new Venom, just played it out a little bit more. And it's going to be written by Mike Costa, and I'll be totally honest with you, I like his current Web Warriors book, but aside from that, Mike Costa has never really written anything that impressed me. I mean, he didn't write anything that made me upset. He's never written anything that I went, oh god, this is terrible. No, he's just written a lot of, okay, stuff. You know, I've come down right in the middle on him. So, yeah, I'm not excited for this book. I'm not upset with this book. This book just kind of is. But there you go, that was it. We have now covered all the books in the new Marvel Now, and when those books start coming out this October, I will make videos covering every single one of those new books and giving you reviews of all those books, just like I am currently doing with all the DC Rebirth books. I'm going to be doing this until the day I die, because Marvel and DC will never stop relaunching all their books. But if you want to see all those reviews, then make sure that you stick around by hitting that subscribe button. You can also contact me on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thordy if you have any questions for me. And if you like this episode, make sure you share it all around the web. We are so incredibly close to 10,000 subs. We are that freaking close to it. I can taste it. In fact, we might even hit it by the time this episode goes up. So I thank every single person who has shared these videos, because it's thanks to you that we are about to hit that massive number. Oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough. But for now, I'm just gonna say thanks for watching, everyone. Come back next time. Bye.